Well folks, welcome to the latest edition of Picking Reels. So it seems that Avian has been back up to Fort William, and he went on a picking expedition and had a rummage in some people's garages, and this is what we found. Okay, so first off in Picking Reels is we got a Mitchell 606. Essentially this is not in marvellous external condition. I think the internal condition is fine as it happens, and it does have a handle missing. At this point in time they're not marvellously easy to replace, but they can be sourced, and they can also be copied quite easily too. As you can see from the thickness there, it is essentially very similar to the Mitchell 64, but it's not as wide. I think Mitchell 64 comes out a bit wider, and I think this is what they call a lower relative of the 64, and it seems to be working perfectly. Everything on it seems to work. We have had a reel like this on once before. I think it was the Gilfin 500, and there's a bit of slackness in the handle there. Well, that just needs tightening up, and essentially it has a ratchet and forward reverse lock, and if you flip the switch you can then cast out, and that needs a bit of cleaning up. And it's not a high value reel particularly, but it is interesting, quite a good quality reel to pick up. Okay, so next up we have this, which is a Daiwa 175. It says on the internet that these are trolling and mooching reels. Trolling is a type of sophisticated spinning, and so is mooching in fact. Not entirely convinced that that is what it is. It's a wide arbor reel. It is made from zinc cast, so if you notice from the Mitchell, which we have here, is made from a lot of the thermoplastic and chrome plated copper. That's because it's got to stand up to salt water. So if you've got something like this, which is made of zinc cast, salt water will pretty much destroy zinc cast and aluminium cast reels fairly quickly. So I actually think this is a salmon reel, possibly dry fly style, and the reason I say that is this on the back. It's just kind of a stripping guide, and it has a particularly wide arbor, which is good for pulling your line in fast. And the reason that I say that it's a salmon reel, and I think it's more of a plugging reel than a fly reel, because you've actually got a switch on the back in which you can turn the ratchet on and off. So I would guess that when you turn the ratchet off, you're then able to cast. If the grease wasn't so stiff inside this, it would probably spin round and round really fast. But it doesn't, because it is quite old and it's been in somebody's garage for a long time. So we take the top off this, which you can do easily with fly reels. There you go, you got quite a robust mechanism at the back there. You can probably see the switch working. In fact, you can see it moving there. So I actually think that these were sold as salmon reels, and I think what they're for is possibly salmon plugging, maybe, possibly from a boat. I think it's something like that. I'm not sure. I think you probably could use it as dry fly. I think that may have been the original intention. But with the wide arbor and that, I think this is more oriented towards heavy fish fishing, salmon fishing from a boat perhaps, with a plug. And I think the fact that you've got that ratchet you can switch off kind of backs that up. However, a mooching and trolling reel, I think you could probably use this for mooching and trolling, but I don't know if that's really what it's for. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced. Back in the 70s, when this kind of thing was made, open face reels were only just coming into mainstream, so it may well be that that's the thinking behind this was more of a plug-in reel. So I don't know. It's not really an easy cast though. So anyway, that potentially is a reasonably valuable reel actually. Okay, so we have our usual array of Young's reels. We've got a lot of Young's salmon reel. That's a 4-inch one. And then we've got a couple of Bodexes, which are brake fly reels, which can be used with fly rods, and that's a wide drum, that one. Now right at the bottom of our pack here is this. So this actually weighs 5.500 grams, so that's over half a kilo. And you can imagine the kind of rod that this would have been used to balance out. You know, probably some enormous spliced green heart rod or something like that. And maybe, you know, maybe a 16-footer or something. But it is absolutely gigantic. And you could anchor a boat with this. It's so big and heavy. People love these though because they've got the old fancy Georgian writing on the front. It's not a Georgian reel, by the way. It's quite a lot later than that. I would say probably 1908, something like that. And just as a heads up, this is called a plate wind, and it's called a plate wind because you have this on the front, which is the plate. In a lot of reels, once you take the screw off, that plate, if you back wind it, it unscrews. And this particular one's got a square flatted shaft on it, and the ratchet's working perfectly, and it is essentially a very, very simple reel, and there's very little to it. That is probably quite a valuable reel. I would say probably up around 100 or so. That's probably the find that Avian made at Fort William. Considering it's actually a London reel too, it's not a Scottish reel. So anyway folks, that brings us to the end of this little episode of Picking Reels. Thanks very much for watching folks.